What's up, guys and gals of the movement world? It's Sean Mishka, the Movement Miyagi, coming to you once again for Football Beyond the Stats and our Movement Play of the Week. This week for Week 11 of this 2022 National Football League season campaign. Now, as it typically happens at least once across the NFL season, there's a week where two plays stand out much more than all others. But between those two plays, I can't pick which one is a more skillful, adaptable, attuned, and dexterous expression of movement skill. So I have to feature both of them. Well, in week 11 here of the 2022 NFL season, we see two of the all-time greats at their respective positions. Cordarrelle Patterson as a kick returner and Travis Kelce as a tight end, doing what they do, doing how they do it, and doing it in a way that no one else at the position can solve those respective problems. So I had to give credit where credit's due and feature both of them equally in our movement play of the week for week 11. So as we look at Cordarrelle Patterson here today, Cordarrelle Patterson now has been on a number of teams doing this exact same thing over the last 9 or 10 years. I think he missed one respective season in there, maybe the 19th season. But he's done it here in Minnesota for a number of years. I think he had 4 or 5 kick return touchdowns. Then going on to play at the Raiders, the Patriots, the Bears, and now at the Falcons. And so here against his old team, he is going to do the unthinkable, which is set the NFL kickoff return record for touchdowns, a record that obviously does mean a whole heck of a lot in the whole scheme of the National Football League. The reason why it does is because, number one, kickoff return touchdowns are somewhat of a rarity. There are only a few of them every given season across the entirety of the league. Secondly, they've continued to change the rules of kickoffs so that there are less kick returns as a whole in order to hopefully increase the safety of the game. So they become that much more rare even still. But Cordarrelle Patterson doing what he does, only person that's able to do it at this respective level. As I tweeted the other day, the baddest man to ever return a kick. And now he proves that based on this record. So let's look at this record-setting touchdown. I do want to point out a couple of things here. Number one, the Falcons are behind by 10 points. Why are the Falcons behind by 10 points? With this a few minutes to go or 4 minutes to go and change in the second quarter? Because Cordarrelle Patterson, the last time he touched a football on Sunday prior to this kick return, actually fumbled the ball. So that plays into the constraints. This is all about the constraints and how they may coalesce to give a player the canvas to go solve the problem. Remember, context shapes content, and the two have a mutual reciprocal relationship with one another, just like a performer and environment do, and just like perceptions, cognitions, and actions do as well. The problem and the solution always intertwined and interwoven in this way. So let's get into the play, and we're going to watch it a number of times through. Obviously, we're going to see the magic expression that is Cordarrelle Patterson with his experience and the exposure. No one's had more of it at the NFL level than Cordarrelle Patterson, at least skillfully finding a functional fit to these types of movement problems. And I'm glad that we're going to see it from a couple different views here, because anytime we're looking at kick returns or punt returns, to really truly see the layered problem solving that comes from the more skillful and dexterous of returners, you want to be able to zoom out 30,000 foot view and then zoom in at times as well to see this truly layered movement problem solving, the simultaneous affordances that are being presented to a player, as well as then the successive nested affordances that are being presented to the player as well. There's no place that we can see the intertwined, interwoven nature of problem and solution. And of course, the NFL is going to make us have those little screens on there. So I apologize for that. But there's no place that we can see this problem and solution interface where behavior affords behavior, and the two, the problem and the solution, become mutually connected to one another, how they both perpetually feed into one another, as well as you can see it on a kick return or a punt return, as long as you're zoomed out far enough, right? And now we only have two views here on this respective highlight. But if you go to Football Beyond the Stats and look at the Movement Play of the Week breakdown or blog post spot, click on the video from the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons video footage, I think they give us 4 or 5 views, and you're really going to be able to see the nuances and the intricacies of how Cordarrelle Patterson does what he does it differently than all others in a really unique and authentic fashion. But you're going to see how he is perceiving to act and acting to perceive. But let's go ahead and break down and look at how he's doing that with the 2 views that we do have here. So getting into 50% speed now, ball in the air. Let's remember the Bears just went up thanks to a Cordarrelle Patterson fumble. And now, first thing I want to make a mention, oftentimes what you'll see from a kick return or a punt return, even one that is going about to be able to return that ball in the air, is they will get themselves up underneath the ball, right underneath to where it is that they're anticipating through a prospective and online control that the ball is going to land. And now, if you've never tried to catch an NFL kick or punt, it is not an easy feat in and of itself to do. In fact, I tried to catch one a number of times at the old Metrodome, and I had a hell of a time. Now, I'm not the greatest catcher or receiver in the walking the face of the planet, and not even a good one at that. But those individuals that are able to do it with chaos coming and ensuing at them. Now, a punt return is going to be a little bit more chaotic and complex than, say, a kick return will be, because obviously there's more space, and the closer and closer those other bodies, particularly from defenders, but also your own guys, continue to get to you, the more pressure you start to feel, the more anxious you are when that ball is in the air. But watch Cordarrelle. He does this a lot more skillfully than most people will. Look how far back he is. He has every intention of returning this kick, but he knows that the kick is going to land just a couple of yards deep. I think it's 2 or 3 yards deep here. I think this ends up being a 103-yard kick return. But look where he's standing. He's 5 or 6 deep, because he's going to use it to time his approach to the ball and hit the ground running as soon as he catches it. Look at this little jog up into it. And now, it doesn't seem like a lot. It's very subtle. But while he's doing that, he's using it to pick up some momentum, but also give himself a little bit more time to see things play out in front of him. And Cordarrelle, as a kick returner, does that as skillfully as any behavior in this respective type of problem solving ever has. Now, watch how he begins. And because we are going to get into 2 plays today, I'm going to try to go through this as quickly as possible. But there's a lot of nuance here. Look at how he begins to the right to set up the entire flow from right to left of the Chicago Bears kick return or kick cover unit. Look at everybody just kind of moving in this direction, right? Look at them all. You can see them all. Look at everybody in their way. When you look at this and watch it unfold, this is all based on how behavior affords behavior. In this case, Cordarrelle behaving in a fashion where he's moving and veering subtly to his right to pull and draw the Chicago Bears kick cover unit to that direction as well. But watch how deliberately he does this to take in the information and intentionally act upon it, knowing that if he does this and gets the flow moving from left to right, looking from his perspective and telling his movement problem solving story, it will open up an opportunity for a cutback lane. And that's exactly what happens here, right? He then acts decisively once he's out of this ownership type of pace and speed. Ownership, it's set up. He acts decisively, punches that right foot into the ground, and knows that there is going to be a lane for him to then accept. Then, when I say accept, because that lane is an affordance. It's an opportunity to act. And remember, an affordance points both ways, to the environment and to the performer. Hence the reason it's about this complementary nature between a performer's action capabilities and what they are perceiving, intending, and acting on doing, and what is actually unfolding contextually in this alive movement problem. Okay. Hopefully that makes some sense. Again, the reason why I'm belaboring the point here, even though I typically would on a given week, is because a kick return or a punt return is the easiest place for us to see it. Now, once he moves into this cutback lane, look at the trash that he still has to go through. And of course, all these other players, and something I don't want you to miss is how behavior affords behavior, how Cordarrelle is acting right now changes the way that the Bears kick cover unit begins to behave then. They are all perceiving deeper beyond their immediate local movement problem, that blocker that is attempting to block them and keep them from Cordarrelle. So look at all of their behaviors change and begin to stop their feet, move from now going from right to left to right in correspondence in a mutual reciprocal way to Cordarrelle. Cordarrelle now stays as open and responsive and as skillfully intentional as there has ever been at this position. He still isn't moving at maximum speed until he has to, and until the slight opening arises, and now we see it right here. He even has just this little stumble right here as he moves through this. And now, once this opens up, remember, affordances emerge and decay. Once that affordance is presented to him and he makes and elects to and selects upon it, he elects to move in a certain way once he selects that affordance in the landscape to act upon. And now the gas pedal is on, right? And Cordarrelle go with a little bit more of this mid-range type of speed, which is actually perfect and most advantageous for kick return situations, say versus a punt return, which is more about suddenness and some more about stop ability or change of direction ability, i.e. evasive agility, right? Kick return is a little bit more about this medium and long range speed, but don't get it twisted here, guys and gals. It's not just about the action capabilities. It's not just about that mid-range or top-end speed. It's about utilizing that speed accordingly and perceiving and acting upon these affordances that exist out in the world. Look at as he's moving here. Now, granted, one of them is a kicker, and the other one is an interactive dyad right here of a blocker and defender, wannabe tackler that are attempting to bring him down. So it's just really these two guys to beat, this 1v1 interaction here that is taking place, and the kicker, who has very little capability of being able to actually tackle Cordarrelle Patterson in the open field. So watch Cordarrelle look to his left right here to pick up what exactly is unfolding there, right? Like he kind of disregards number two, the kicker. He's kind of like, I know that in a number one, a foot race easily. Number two, any sort of evasive agility problem solution dynamics that are unfolding, like this kicker doesn't stand much of a chance. Like I'll deal with him in a bit, right? So he looks directly to it and actually veers his path to draw the kicker in further, but he veers his path towards this unfolding interaction, knowing that he still might be able to keep himself more open, which will allow him to be more responsive to that, which what is actually unfolding. Hopefully makes some sense there, but it shows you the layers of Cordarrelle Patterson. And there, I'm talking about that mid-range speed. Once he gets that head of steam built up, you're not going to catch him, right? Because he's going to hit that gap and he's going to really put this speed in expressing it in a game-like in-game scenario, right? This is game speed here and the ability to actually express these action capabilities in context, right? But I want to show you guys something. I hear it time and time again, and I've drawn attention to it here before at Football Beyond the Stats. I hear coaches at every level talk about once you get in the open field, staying in your tunnel, keeping your head fixated forward, not taking in information left or right, or not worrying about what's coming behind you. And I am of the belief that you must remain in a problem solver frame and state of mind. What does that mean? You must be continually picking up and detecting information, acting to perceive and perceiving to act in a tightly coupled, intertwined nature. This is why sometimes we see players who are very fast by themselves when they're in a training setting, who might get nabbed from behind when there's somebody pursuing them, because they're not actually picking up information about them, whether it's more kinesthetically being aware of your surroundings, or whether it's this active search to look left or right. I want you guys to pick up what Cordarrelle does there. He actively finds those threats, those pursuing defenders. And when he does, watch how he behaves accordingly. Okay. Look at over his right shoulder, finds the kicker. Over his left shoulder. I mean, this look over his left shoulder is like he's contorting his body. Now, is he losing a bit of speed when he does so? Likely. But think of what benefits it brings Cordarrelle Patterson. He can actually change the trajectory of his running path to get away and add separation from the guy. And he's doing it till the very end. His perceptions are guiding and shaping his actions. He's actually getting an update of the information as it unfolds in the world. Remember, the world is its best model, and he's using that to couple his actions in relation to. Let's watch it one more time in slow motion here, all the way in its entirety. But I want you guys to see this. So I think that this is something that we can do to guide and channel and shape one's attentional search for information, one's perceptual search. How are the perceptual degrees of freedom, even in the open field with two chasing individuals behind you and you're in the lead? It isn't just about putting your head down and running in a tunnel. You must continue to update the information about threats, because those threats are taking away affordances in the landscape, right? And then he ends up getting kind of snagged from behind there, but still, as he goes into the end zone, and 103 yards later, Cordarrelle Patterson has himself his ninth kickoff return touchdown of his career, the NFL record, taking over for Josh Cribbs and somebody else. Now, we see it from this other view. Again, I would recommend go to Football Beyond the Stats, look at the Atlanta Falcons video. I couldn't use it because I typically get a copyright infringement when I do. And the guys over at Highlight Heavens don't do that to me. Highlights Heaven don't do that to me, whereas the Atlanta Falcons and most NFL teams do. So hence the reason I couldn't use that exact video. But I would recommend you go look and watch and see what he does and how he does it from numerous viewpoints. Because remember, if we're going to really truly tell a player's movement problem-solving story, put ourselves in their human movement system, we're going to be able to see what they're seeing more closely. And if we see what we're seeing, we can hopefully then try to put ourselves in their decisions and the ways that they're aiming to act in an unfolding fashion, and ultimately try to determine why it is that they're acting in the way that they are. What affordances in the landscape are being presented to them. And you can begin to see it here as to how much space Cordarrelle Patterson has afforded to him and how he's behaving in accordance to it. Now, I will say that it's not the greatest view. The Atlanta Falcons view has one that's actually better than this. You'll see it from both end zones and then an up close view to really watch and see what Cordarrelle is perceiving and how he might be acting in accordance to that information that he's picking up and detecting. But nonetheless, you can see exactly some of the things that we just talked about from the other view, him constantly looking over his shoulder to get that updated perceptual pickup and then changing his actions in accordance to it. So you can see why I wanted to feature Cordarrelle Patterson first and foremost for his record-setting NFL kickoff return touchdown record now, 9 NFL kickoff return touchdowns. I moved from Cordarrelle Patterson into Travis Kelce, and Travis Kelce in this context and content in the way that they were being shaped showed himself to be among the GOATs at the tight end position, as if he needed any more on his resume to do exactly that, right? Particularly from a movement skill standpoint. Somebody who I've featured here at Football Beyond the Stats numerous times before on my all movement team for his craftiness, his creativity, his authenticity at moving in his own way at the tight end position, that then has led to certain records that he has set along the way as well. But I've also done it in plays of the week, and we're going to feature him yet again, because what we see from him here is more of the same of who he is, that authentic, that creative nature, but also that very connected nature of his movement skill. Now, Travis Kelce isn't the fastest guy on the field, even as a tight end. Even at the tight end position, he's not the fastest guy. But what he lacks in speed capabilities or in action capabilities or effectivities, depending on what terminology you want to use here, he makes up for in the craftiness of his perceptions, cognitions, and actions, the decisions he makes and how he sets guys up and remains perceptually connected. So let's go ahead and watch this play as the Chiefs take the lead from the Chargers here. And obviously this wasn't the first time on this respective game, if you watch the game, that you saw Travis Kelce do this, because he actually ended up scoring 3 times in this respective game. And we're only going to have one view again. If you go to Football Beyond the Stats, just like I mentioned with the Atlanta Falcons Cordarrelle Patterson play, you will see this play in its entirety from a number of different angles. So go click on that on my blog post and you will see it from another number of angles, which I wish we had here today to break down and dive into deeper. But we're going to be able to at least highlight some of the qualities and features that make this one of our movement plays of the week. And I think you see it right there in this really nuanced, highly adaptable, but very perceptually connected way of behaving from Travis Kelce. Now, first and foremost, he's lined up here, guys and gals, with Asante Samuel, who is one of the better young cornerbacks. Not even one of the better young cornerbacks in the league, one of the better cornerbacks in all of the National Football League. He's 1v1 with Asante Samuel Jr. On this crossing route. Now, very few players at any position, tight end or wide receiver, split out wide or slot receiver, very few guys better at running crossing routes and doing it with efficiency and effectiveness and skill as Travis Kelce is, and he shows so right here. Of course, we're going to really pick up once you can see Samuel reach out and give his outstretched attempt at knocking this ball down, much to no avail, obviously, on 3rd and 4 here. 4th quarter has just begun, and the Chiefs are behind and trailing the Chargers. But this was a back and forth battle, ended up going into overtime, where Travis Kelce, of course, has the walk-off winner in this respective game in overtime. But this play itself begins to show us who Travis Kelce is and how he expresses truly dexterous movement problem-solving skills. Okay. And so remember, dexterity being about the highest expression of one's skill, the most attuned, intentional, and adaptable of expression as we can get in this situation. Dexterity, of course, from Bernstein, 1996, the ability to solve any emerging movement problem, any situation, any condition. Got to give love to my man, Bernie. But I want to show and point something out to you guys here, really after Kelce turns upfield. When we talk about, in an ecological dynamics approach or rationale, slices or snippets of the game, and this is something that myself and colleagues talked about in our 2022 paper of applying an ecological approach in American football, we talk about slices and snippets of the game to constrain, to afford, or present alive movement problems to players on the offensive or defensive side. Think about Travis Kelce in this respective scenario and situation. This is a slice or a snippet of the game that I believe position coaches across the National Football League, if they were to employ a sport movement skill acquisition coach, that sport movement skill acquisition coach could manipulate constraints to essentially create this type of problem and to rep it out. And when I say rep it out, I mean to do so in a repetition without repetition fashion, where no two problems are the same, and the performer themselves gets an opportunity to connect to that problem in different nuanced fashions. So they can adjust perceptual, cognitive, and action degrees of freedom in a way that they're making constant adjustments. They're intending to act in different ways. They're seeing how it plays out. They're picking up different information sources, teammates, opponents, spacing, etc. And this is a really easy way, guys and gals, to constrain to afford. This exact problem, when I say exact problem, realize no two problems are ever the same, hence the reason no two solutions are the same. But when I say exact, I mean we set up in our learning environment for NFL players in the summer and the spring, learning environments that look, feel, behave just like this, okay? And what I mean by that is we may have a player catch a ball on a short crosser, his back turned to that alive problem, and I put that in quotations. I don't really mean it in quotations because I believe that all problems in sport are alive, but we should present more alive movement problems to athletes. And this is going to be a 3v5, oh, wait a minute, excuse me, 3v3 type of situation, 3v5. I don't know where the hell I came up with that. So you can tell this is a highly emergent video recording right here. So this 3v3 type of situation ultimately ends up becoming a 3v2 really quickly. And what I mean by that is obviously Asante Samuel drops off the mix right away, right? So we may have this guy running with the player, attempting to knock the ball down. So the skill player, the offensive skill player, in this case, Travis Kelce playing tight end, or could be a receiver, could be a running back. You kind of get where I'm going with this. The offensive skill player has to secure the football first and foremost. The ball is specifying, let's not forget that, as is one's immediate opponent. And we want to have contested catches. But once they deal with this contested catch, it now turns into a 3v2. 2 defenders for the Chargers, 3 Chiefs versus those 2 defenders. But Travis Kelce gets the opportunity to connect to this problem in his own unique and specific way. And ultimately, it ends up actually remaining a 3v3 problem because of what he does with this other defender. And what I want to point out here, so I guess technically it was a more small-sided on the Chiefs' standpoint to begin with, but we can see that he's connecting to different information sources, hence the reason he is not actually even moving at optimal. He's moving at an optimal speed. He's not moving at a maximal speed, right? So hopefully you guys caught what I was trying to say there. He's not moving at maximal speed because he's approaching this movement problem at optimal speed so he can coordinate, control, and organize his movement actions to the unfolding nature of the problem. So what is that problem, and how and where is it presenting challenges to me? And as it presents challenges to me as the ball carrier, it also is presenting on the flip side affordances, opportunities to act. But as I act, the problem changes too. Behavior affords behavior, hence the reason why we wanted to feature both these plays. The more skillful performer, the more dexterous performer, in this case, is also going to likely be more attuned, meaning more sensitive to information pickup about opponents and about the unfolding problem. And Travis Kelce at the position, second to none right now. But I want to show you, now you can see this guy right off the screen, who he is likely looking ahead to, and I apologize if any of this is confusing. He's likely looking ahead to that guy while also taking in information, and now this happens in a hurry, So he might not be explicitly aware of this information he's picking up. However, through experience and exposure to these types of problems, he has gotten more attuned, more adaptable, and ultimately more authentic in this particular problem. This is a 2v2 right now, himself and a teammate, two defending opponents. But if we were to see it from the other view, from the Enzo view, we must also acknowledge that back here where my mouse is scrolling, there's another dyadic relationship downfield. So the more skillful performer will understand more clearly what information they have to be sensitive to, meaning what information they must pick up and when they must pick it up. But let's watch Travis Kelce here frame by frame behave in accordance to set up this defender behind this unfolding interaction. This is like a Barry Sanders-like-ish type of move where you're setting up simultaneous, you're essentially perceiving and setting up successive affordances. You're trying to determine in a prospective type of fashion, anticipating, looking ahead, how I behave now will equate to how the problem may unfold in the future. Okay. So look at it here, because this is just a really adaptable, really creative, really deceptive way of acting for Travis Kelce, especially a tight end in open field, connecting to two bits of information here. Let me go back one, because this is, I don't want you guys to miss this, right? This 2v2 scenario right now, he is remaining connected to that defender, and he essentially sets him up on a string. And notice I mentioned this interaction that was happening further downfield, which ends up becoming kind of an afterthought, even though it likely wasn't for Travis Kelce, because right now, right here, as he skillfully perceives, he's perceiving wider, deeper, and longer, right? He's filling in those details as they are unfolding, not taking snapshots, but seeing how it dynamically unfolds and what is emerging. But this interaction right here, let's not miss this, because this is as nifty as it gets. That's as adaptable as it gets. And obviously, once he does that, he's realizing, like, I just put this dude on my poster. I'm not going to allow this guy to bring me down now, who the defensive backs and their tackling on for the Los Angeles Chargers was absolutely atrocious on Sunday night. But you can see what I'm talking about here. Travis Kelce doing what others at the tight end position simply cannot do, this highly layered movement problem solving. And look at the movement actions, highly adaptable. I cannot say enough about what Travis Kelce does here. This is deceleration, change of direction in context, guys and gals. And in context, we see the creative, authentic, deceptive nature about that deceleration and change of direction, positions and patterns, and truly the execution being executed and being highly emergent based on what's occurring in the problem. The reason why I'm emphasizing this is because this, I fully believe, can and should be trained. How can and should be trained, or how would we go about training it? I already mentioned this first interaction, the contested catch. But once we get to this point in the learning environments, out in our learning environments, typically from hash to sideline, or maybe a tad narrower, we will set up a movement problem where a player is entering that from catching a ball, and there will be a number of unfolding interactions taking place down the field in a very similar fashion as this is. A free defender is typically entering the mix. Okay. So that's someone who presents a high threat, as they do in this scenario, that you have to become sensitive to the informational variables around. Where is that guy? How fast is he moving? Where is he going? How does he have the opportunities to act? What is our space and relationship between one another right now? This, again, is if you're coming from Kelce's perspective, or any offensive player in a learning environment. And then becoming attuned and sensitive to blocker, so teammate blocker, an opponent, wannabe tackler, dyadic relationships. seeing this all unfold in this way. And this is how you can have it be no two rivers that we are ever standing in. We can constantly change this problem, where the blockers' interactions are, how they're entering the space, how far away we might be from a line to gain. It could be the end zone, like in this case. It could be a first down marker. We could manipulate space from a whiff standpoint. So much here, guys and gals, that we can train, we can channel these types of skillful interactions. And so this really becomes a great case study, if you will, to illustrate the need to constrain to afford, manipulate constraints. So you set up alive movement problems that are representative of the sport. They look, feel, act, and behave like the sport will, but we give the player, the performer, the keys to the car to own aspects of their perceptions, their cognitions, meaning the intentions and the decision-making, and ultimately how their actions are emerging as an expression of these unfolding problem solution dynamics. Okay, I know we went over a lot today. Hopefully it was beneficial for each one of you out there. If you have questions, you have thoughts, you want to see me break down something else or some other play, put the comments in the comment section below. If you like this video, give me the thumbs up, share it on social media if you would, so we can continue to let people see that there is a different lens of viewing movement behavior through, and it is oriented around this problem solver form of life, where perceptions, cognitions, and actions are intertwined and interwoven to form these integrated movement solutions. So for Sean Mishka, Football Beyond the Stats, and our movement play of the week this week for week 11 of the 2022 National Football League season, I will see you guys in week 12.